accessed the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey, fellow Owens, welcome to 2023, and you are listening to the podcast of OA, episode number 218. In this episode, Phil and I are going to talk about the last issue of the Geoff Thorne run, the special one-shot John Stewart, the Emerald Knight #1. We're also going to talk a little bit about Stan Lee Imagines Green Lantern, which was recently reprinted in a whole collection on Earth 6 books. And, of course, we've got Know Your Core segment. So I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Phil. Phil, my friend, Happy New Year to you. I hope things are off to a good start.
Happy New Year. Yeah, everything's going great. It was... We had a great New Year's. We were supposed to have some friends over, but one of them got COVID. the other one got strep throat. So we spent the New Year's alone with Clark. And he's in his potty training phases. So everything's going good. Got a new microphone from the in-laws and a headset. So I'm hoping that people out there notice a difference in my voice this week.
Good. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. I ended up getting sick the day after Christmas with the stomach bug that's been going around. And I was sick the entire week and didn't start feeling better until Friday to Saturday. Went back to work the following Tuesday, and then it flared back up again. So I was off again last week. So it's been just a rough couple of weeks, but I'm glad to be back and talking Green Lantern stuff. That's for sure.
Everybody's getting this stuff. I mean, I don't know how many teachers at our work that's just been sick. I mean, I was working with a lady today and she had all kinds of, she had a pipe burst on Christmas Eve and then she got sick, her kids got sick, her husband got sick. I was like, oh my God, it's terrible.
A good section of our office, half of them were gone. It was bad, but Anyway, we've got some Green Lantern stuff to talk about. So before we dive into the John Stewart one-shot, which I know we're dying to chat about.
Exactly.
Just a tiny little bit of Green Lantern news. You know, we know the whole DC movie universe shakeups are going on, and James Gunn has said that he's going to be revealing something this month about some of what the slate's going to be for the next, apparently, 10 years. And an image leaked, and I do an air quote leaked, because I don't know whether it's a real leak or whether it's somebody making something up to get hits. But the leaked image showed both the Green Lantern HBO Max series and the Green Lantern Corps movie in it. I take it with a Mogo-sized grain of salt because I don't think it's actually been leaked out. I think it's just somebody trying to get hits.
I mean, when that news broke, when that news broke, I mean, it's like a bomb off in the fandom universe. It's like, man, nobody knows how to calm down anymore, and nobody knows how to give things a chance anymore, and everybody likes to just jump to their conclusions.
It's interesting. It's been interesting to watch fans respond to stuff, and of course you've got a whole section of the whole Snyder cult stuff going on, and so they're calling.
You got that rumor about this? They want to sell Snyderverse to Netflix. I mean, come on, man. Are we at this point in our life? I mean, you don't see. This is what upsets me and infuriates me about the fandoms that are on our side. I mean, you don't see this kind of stuff over in Marvel. You don't see this kind of just blatant, just ridiculousness. It's like, people.
We eat our own. That's the thing. It's just it's something.
I love what we do, and I do love the fandom. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I want people to just take a step back and take a breath and say, I mean, to be quite honest with you, everybody knew this needed it. I mean, everybody knew it. If you didn't know that the DC universe needed some kind of this needs to come to a stop, we need to just stop what we're doing and rethink our strategy, then you were just living in a cave for your life. I mean,
yeah.
So anyway,
I'm hopefully cautiously optimistic because I don't know if you watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I thought it was hysterical.
Yeah,
I liked some of the things that he's done. I wasn't so crazy about a Suicide Squad movie, to be honest. But I think if he really does the things he says he's going to do, if he's going to pay reverence to the characters and try to be a good custodian of these characters while still making them accessible to people who aren't huge fans, I think he'll be successful. But we'll know more when we start to see it. It's hard to get excited or down or feel negative about it one way or the other, because there's really no information. And I don't know about you, but I don't have time for all the conjecture.
No, I really don't. It's a different person's approach to the medium, and it's no different than if it's no different than Zack Snyder. He had his own version of what he wanted, and it was accepted by some and rejected by others. And I'm sure when Gunn comes out and does his stuff, he already has been rejected by some and is liked by others. It'll probably continue that phase.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you're never, in a million years, you're never going to please them all. You're going to get a high percentage hit, but you're never going to please everybody.
That's correct. That's very true. Very, very true. All right. Well, this is an episode I've both been looking forward to doing and dreading doing at the same time, because we're going to talk about this one-shot John Stewart book. I'm excited because I think it's the last we're going to see of Geoff Thorne in the Green Lantern universe. Not looking forward to it because I thought it was a steak bomb, but we'll get into it in greater depth after you do this episode's Know Your Core segment. So we'll take a quick pause. We'll give you the center stage to talk about one of our members of the Core, and then we'll be right back.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
Hello, fellow Owens, and welcome back to another Know Your Core segment. This week, we bring you the creature from Sector 1014, Earth 1, New Earth, Chip. Green Lantern, Chip. The Crabster army of Dr. Ubix's invaded Sector 1014 and killed that sector's Green Lantern. Ubix turned his army on his homeworld of Helleven and easily overran its peaceful inhabitants. Chip, the leader of the Hellevenite resistance, was sentenced to death as an example to his fellow citizens. While in his cell awaiting his execution, Chip was visited by one of the Guardians of the Universe who offered him a Green Lantern ring. Using the ring, Chip was able to escape and beat the Ubix army and his army. Shortly afterwards, Chip entered training on Oa in the same class as recruits as Hal Jordan. His first appearance was in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 148, January 1982, and the appearance of his death, Green Lantern Mosaic number 2, July 1992. There you have it, folks. Another cool member of the Know Your Core segment, Chip.
Oh, poor Chip. That giant yellow school bus just laid him out flat. Literally.
Cuts karma.
So the last week or so of the year ended with the John Stewart, The Emerald Knight #1, a one-shot, an oversized one-shot from Geoff Thorne and Marco Santucci. And I think for all intents and purposes, this wraps up Geoff Thorne's run on the book. I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon because we know that there are 2 Green Lantern books coming out this year and his name is not attached to either one of them. And some comments, was that a small yay I heard? And there's also some comments that he has made since then, which lend a lot of credence to the fact that his time is done, although this issue certainly leaves the door open for him to return or for some other writer to pick up on a couple of plot threads, one big, huge one in particular. What's interesting about this issue is, I got done reading it. I'm like, I don't even know why we needed this issue, because the way that the series ended, it was fine. And this book tries to bridge the gap from the Thorne run to where things start out when the Justice League is killed in the launch of Dark Crisis. So chronologically speaking, this issue is something that took place a while ago, essentially. But I don't know. It's interesting. It starts out, it's 2 years from where we last left off, but it's not 2 years in our time. It's 2 years in Dark Sector time, because time travels differently. And I think that's something that's going to be very important as we talk about this issue. But during these 2 years, John has been battling with his Green Lanterns that stayed behind with him in the Dark Sector, had been battling against the forces of Isak and Phalanx and winning some of the things back, some of the planets back, winning some battles, losing others. You get the distinct impression that the Green Lantern forces are getting a little battle weary, and so there's a little bit of dissension in the ranks. And of course, then Lonar shows up with mountains of exposition to kind of push things along a little bit. And then we kind of get some resolution to the whole Isak storyline. But one of the things that initially I want to comment on was, I don't get the whole thing about giving the Green Lanterns these orbs. They're fighting in the beginning. The opening pages is this big 2-page spread of the Green Lanterns fighting against Phalanx's armies, and they're holding these what looks like small balls in their hand that are shooting energy, which I was like, dude, you know about Green Lantern rings? Why would you go with that? It was just kind of weird looking. I mean, did you feel the same way when you read it?
Well, no. To go back to what you said about the original point. I mean, I didn't understand the purpose of this issue at all. I just did. I felt like it was just like one of those. Well, Thorne's got contractually obligated to finish something up, so let's just let him write whatever he wants to write and just be done with it. The orbs thing, that's what started it all for me, because I'm sitting there looking at this. I'm like, what is it they're holding? I kept trying to think to myself, is this something new that I haven't heard about? Did I miss something? I was like, what are they holding? And they do it throughout the whole first part here. Yeah.
It was a little odd. But Lonar shows up and he does what he does best. He talks a whole lot, and that bogged down. I mean, I thought the opening battle sequence was kind of exciting and interesting, to an extent, but then Lonar shows up and then it's like word balloons after word balloons after word balloons.
Right.
Which the narrative congestion really had a negative impact on the pacing of the book and made it denser than it really needed to be. And I understand, if this is Thorne's last shot on his way out, he's trying to get some of these things explained for readers, but man, what an awful way to do it. I don't know. For me, it was like, ugh. But in the end of it, what we find out is that the reason why Isak is able to go on and do some of the things he's doing and killing people and so on is because he hasn't decided what he's the god of. So he's kind of gaming the game, in essence. And because he hasn't chosen to be a god of anything, he can do all of these things. We've heard Lonar say, he's the kind of the god of the voyage, or essentially of the journey. And he doesn't necessarily know where John is going, but he's there to witness it. He can't impact it. He can talk, but he can't really do anything physically to interact with it. And because Isak hasn't made a decision, he's basically ignoring some of the rules of new godhood, essentially. And
gotcha.
One of the things I did like, I've got to give Thorne one positive in the writing here. I really did like his explanation about how hypertime works and how it relates to the multiverse, and the analogy of the source flowing like a cosmic ocean of creative energy and creating multiverses as it flows like little branches of rivers. And these little hypertime pockets are pieces that come out and come back in again, and they don't last forever. Again, something that comes back into play later on in this issue. But I thought it was an interesting way to explain it for people who, like, I struggle with the whole multiverse hypertime thing.
Sure.
It's a little, I think it's more complicated than it needs to be. And I thought Thorne did a good job of dumbing it down or making it more palatable for people.
Well, I think a lot of it, and I think it's important to understand too that multiverse is going to be a concept everybody's going to hear about moving forward, especially in the movies. Both DC and Marvel, doesn't matter who it is. It's becoming a hot topic, and I think it's a trigger point for the comic book mediums now, because in essence, what it does is it does open up avenues for more storytelling in many different ways using the same things.
Yeah.
So,
but one of the things that we find out is that Isak has plucked Xanshi, a copy of Xanshi, out of Hypertime. And if you remember way back in the start of the Thorne run, there were these Crux worlds, and Xanshi was one of them. So he's using a Hypertime version of Xanshi as his base of operations. Xanshi survives the issue and lives on in the dark sectors, essentially wiping out the whole issue with John Stewart and his destruction of Xanshi. And I never saw that as a problem, but I know there's a section of John Stewart's fan base that thinks that Xanshi is a weight around John's leg, dragging him down. I felt like heroes need to have a point of failure. Just as Hal he's there for a while, and still to this day see Parallax trotted out periodically as an example of his failure. I felt like for John, this was his biggest failure, and so by kind of undoing it, it kind of cheats it. I think it was one of the few things that made John interesting as a character. You and I have made comments on the show before. I find John to be a very one-dimensional, flat character. Xanshi and the death of Kat Matui were the two things that I felt were really, they gave John something different that made him stand out, and to have that erased, I think is a mistake, but that's just my opinion as a fan. Some people will be celebrating the fact that Xanshi's returned.
But I wonder if, writers come from different places, right? And writers come from, I don't know, they come up with their own ideas, right? So when I saw Xanshi, I got kind of thinking to myself, and you brought up a point here, like, was that his motivation by bringing Xanshi back? Was because of that pocket of fans that has umbrage with the fact that Xanshi is this anchor that's holding John Stewart back from his. I don't know what they're looking for. John. Right. Everybody's got to have fallacies. That's just human nature knows that nobody's perfect. Superman's not perfect, and nor should he be. Captain America's not perfect. He had some faults. He had some issues in his comic books. Everybody railed on him when he took over Hail Hydra, and it didn't last. But at the same time, I think every character in a comic book, it adds depth to it if there is something that in their past that is a trigger point for them, that has a scar that's lasting throughout their life, and everybody has one. You have one, I have one. We all have those scars, and we carry them. And John's no different. And I've always felt the same way about him being a one-dimensional type of character. I think he's been written in different ways that I still don't even think I really know the real John Stewart character. But that could be a lot of fault of my own because I've never vested that much time in his books like I do Hal's and Kyle's or Jessica's. But and if that's the fault, that I take that blame. It's just because he's just not the person that attracts me as a Lantern. But however, I like seeing him on the Lantern Corps, and not in his own book though.
I always felt Xanshi was this was a learning event. This was a learning experience for John, and that's his self-examination of those events is what led to him becoming the leader that he is. So by undoing it, it feels like he kind of cheapened it. It doesn't undo the lesson he learned, but it's kind of a cheap way to say, oh, well, guess what? It's back again. Right. I kind of wonder, is he going to go back and find Kurt, the guy whose neck he snapped back in Green Lantern Corps? Because we find out, as the story progresses, that he's going in search of Kat Matui at the end of this, because there's got to be a Hypertime version of Kat Matui floating about in this dark sector area and all these Hypertime pockets. If we can find Kat Matui, can we find Kurt? Maybe we can bring him back and redeem him and bring him back to his family.
So is that going to be like John Stewart's redemption book coming next or something, I guess.
Right. It's not like there's a huge burden lifted off of his shoulder. He still did what he did, but I don't know. To me, it cheapens it. But that's my opinion. Other people, I'm sure, will have other opinions. The biggest problem with this issue for me is that the way that John tricks Isak is he pulls another version of himself out of hypertime. So now there are two John Stewarts existing at the same time, and they make Isak decide. They say, what are you the god of? And when he finally admits to what he's the god of, he then becomes the new god of that, and he can no longer go forward with his plan. But we're left with two John Stewarts who are, at the moment that he's plucked out of the multiverse, out of hypertime, they are identical, according to Thorne. They are identical people. And one of them stays behind to go look for Katmatui, and one comes back to our universe, and he's the one that gets killed in Justice League and goes through Final Crisis and is the John Stewart who's in our universe right now. But what Thorne has said, and he doesn't say it in the book, okay, but he said it in a couple of forums on the internet, that the original John Stewart, our John Stewart, is the one who stayed behind. And the hypertime copy came back to our Earth. So the John that we have, even though he's an exact copy, he's not the real John Stewart. And the moment that he got plucked out of hypertime, they now have their own versions of memories. So now they're two separate people, really, because their experiences are going to shape them differently. They're going to have different experiences, so they're going to become two separate individuals. And our John, who is stuck in the dark sectors, is going to age much quicker because time passes differently there. They're both ascended, so that whole ascension thing, that stays the same. They're sharing the power because the universe doesn't see the difference between these two John Stewarts, so they're sharing the power equally. But I'm thinking, my goodness, this ends with a end chapter 1, like we're going to get something else. But boy, if some writer wants to come along, boy, you could do a Green Lantern variation of the Clone Saga now. Right? Because
I'm trying to understand why we need two John Stewarts running around.
What happens if that John Stewart comes back and says, well, I'm the real John Stewart. You're not. Not saying that's what's going to happen, but...
For some reason, I got real Slim Shady, please stand up, running around in my head.
I just, it's like, what an awful creative decision to make. And it's there because if he comes back and wants to continue the story, he can, because that John Stewart that he's doing, the Ascended John Stewart that's out there, is there, and will be having adventures in the dark sectors, and we may never see him again. But the door's always open for him to be there. I just thought, man, what an awful precedent to set with the character. And we still have a John who isn't a Green Lantern. So he doesn't even tie up the loose ends for the John Stewart that comes back to our universe. He's still an ascended John Stewart. And yet when we see him in Dark Crisis and stuff, when he comes out of that at the end of Dark Crisis, he's back to being a Green Lantern again. So who knows what's going on. I was really hoping there'd be some continuity tie-ups there, and there really wasn't. It's kind of a mess as far as I'm concerned. But the whole idea of there being two John Stewarts, what a messy idea. Do you feel the same way, or am I over responding to it?
Look, first of all, you explained the book much better than I ever could, because I've read it twice, and I was like, it's not to say that I didn't understand it, but when I read it twice, the second time I read it, I was like, I have to read it a second time because I'm not sure what I'm reading, right? So I read it a second time, and the second time I kind of got it, but only in a way that I was like, go back to what I said originally. Why? I didn't see the purpose of this book, other than the fact that, he had his quota where he could finish telling the story he wanted to tell. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what was behind the driving factors of writers when it comes to the end of their runs. You know what I mean? They're all entitled to their, I'm going to leave this door open in case I come back, or I'm going to leave this door open in case somebody wants to open it later on. I don't know how that works. And then, of course, you don't know what the execs are driving too, especially with the end of this last crisis that just took place. which I imagine is over by now. I think it's done, right?
Yeah, it's over.
Okay, God. So, but when you and I text on the side, I was like, fans are already hacked off enough that there's enough Earth Lanterns. Now you're going to start confusing them by making 2 John Stewarts. It's not so confusing when you do a multiverse concept because you might have a variant, and that's usually what they're referred to. But then you got to start talking into, okay, well, I'm going to do a hypertime discussion. I'm going to pull John Stewart from hypertime, making him a carbon copy of the original. That messes even further with your multiverse concept, because multiverse concept, they're not carbon copies, right? They're same individuals, but with different personas, different characteristics, or they're not even the same. One might be an ape or something. I don't know. But to me, I felt like this story here was too convoluted for what is a Green Lantern book. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel Green Lantern-y to me.
No.
Like, I miss the Green Lantern-ness of these books. And to be quite honest with you, I'll go back even further and say this entire year, I didn't feel Green Lantern-y. Right. I didn't get that vibe from his book at all.
I mean, when he creates his little subset of his lanterns, his Emerald Knights, he gives them all green energy swords. To what?
Why?
Exactly. Why? It's so stupid. I'm sorry. I'll be blunt.
If you can say that, and that's fine, but I'll take it a step further. That creates laziness, right? I mean, you couldn't come up with a construct that wasn't creative enough to that character to show what doing that in a battle scene. I mean, I'm sorry. You should know your characters that you're in a sense writing about. They shouldn't just be some form fits. And this is what I liked about Grant Morrison. He knew his characters. He knew everything that was happening in these panels. He knew everything he was writing about. He knew where it was coming from, and he knew where he was going with it. I mean, sometimes with Thorne, I've read over this, it's like, it felt like they were just placemat settings for him. Let's go back to what he said. Oh, no lantern is safe. Well, to be quite honest with you, I feel like at this point, everybody's been brought back to life, and it's all just, everybody's here.
Kind of, sort of. I mean, when we see some of the splash pages from Dark Crisis, I think we saw Aricia and some of the other dead lanterns.
That's what I mean.
Is it just a case of the artist picking who they like and not paying attention to continuity? I kind of, we're kind of in a place where either somebody's going to pick up on the John Stewart being ascended thing still being here and continue with it, or they're just going to completely ignore the entire thing. Now, I said earlier that I don't think that he's going to be back anytime soon. And the reason why I say that is, we've got the 2 books that are solicited, but on an interview that Geoff Thorne did, it was the Comics Cube's YouTube channel, or Comics Cube YouTube channel. He did an interview and he talked about what he was going to do with some of the characters. Now, if he was going to continue writing this series or in this mythology, he wouldn't tell you what his plans were going to be. One.
That's true.
But I want to share with you, because I just to say people watching it, if they don't want to, or if they're just interested in it but not enough to watch it, I want to share what his plans were for all of the Earth Lanterns. So I want to get your input, because I certainly have some opinions about them. But John was going to stay ascended because he was going to continue to tell his story, because John being ascended isn't the end of John's story. It's just the end of chapter 1. So he was going to continue to do something with that and tell his story. But here's what he was going to do with the other lanterns. I'm going to do one at a time, and then I'll get your reaction to each one. So Simon Baz, we saw at the end of the Thorne run, was able to kind of communicate with the dead lanterns. He's got kind of a different power set. So he's not really a Green Lantern anymore. And he was going to stay with his ability to communicate to the air quote dead lanterns. Thoughts?
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
That doesn't. Okay, well, I'll add this to it. I don't like Simon Baz. Everybody on this has known that since the beginning of time. But at the same time, to me, what purpose would they even use him for even later on? Just because he can, quote unquote, talk to dead lanterns? Is that what it is? Dead lanterns?
I'm saying air quote dead lanterns, because the air quote dead lanterns were going to be something else, and kind of haunt their old rings.
Wouldn't they be in the crypt?
You would think, yes. We've
So
already
if
kind of
that-
built that mythology up, but yeah, we're ignoring it now.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, if that's the case, Dead Lanterns, maybe he would be better served working in the crypt. I mean, I think that'd be kind of a cool job for him.
Baz is the Green Lantern Miss Cleo.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, she didn't talk to dead people, but you know what I mean. Jessica was going to remain part of the Sinestro Corps. She was not going to become a Green Lantern again.
Cool.
And he was going to explore the idea of there being two rival factions in the Sinestro Corps. What happens when this hero becomes a faction of the Corps and people start to follow her? I kind of dig that one.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I like where that would have went. That would have been, it would, yeah, that would have been cool. I like Jessica as a Yellow Lantern, though. I will say that.
Mm-hmm. But do you see a theme so far?
No?
There are no Green Lanterns yet. All the Earth Lanterns are being changed into something else.
Oh, yeah. I didn't pick up on that. Good point.
Now, here's the one that would get some people rankled. Kyle, it would have been revealed that he died in space during the first chapter. Remember, they showed the panel of him floating in space, and then we see some aliens examining his body.
Right.
So it would have been revealed that he died, dead. And the aliens that find him are the same aliens who designed Kelly Quintella's gauntlet. And they experiment on him, give him some powers and so on. And the trauma of going through all this, it would impact his memory, so he wouldn't have all of his memories. And he would be both an ally and enemy of the Corps, depending on the situation.
That's stupid. That's just dumb.
Again, Kyle's taken off the stage, no longer a Green Lantern.
That's dumb.
Can you imagine how Kyle's fans would react to that, though? Oh, my gosh.
Well, if you want to do something with Kyle, I mean, at least do something cool. That's just dumb. Why?
To get him off, to make him not a Green Lantern. If you look, every one of these things I'm going to tell you, except for two characters, maybe three, they stop being Green Lanterns, essentially. Guy would be trying to save Kyle, trying to help him, and he was likened to being the Green Lantern Corps' version of Captain Kirk.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I like where they're going to go with Guy. I like where they're going with Guy to save Kyle. I don't like the reason they're saving Kyle.
I think it's a good buildup of the relationship. You know, it plays off of the history that the two of them had as really good friends. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like that. Hal, now this one's not going to surprise you at all. Hal would be relegated to doing behind the scenes work. The comment was, well, what if James Bond had to do M's job?
Death duty. Poor Hal.
Yeah, I can't imagine why Thorne would choose that.
I mean, it's like saying that's like saying, okay, well, Superman, you're just not going to do anything when we write you in a book. You're gonna sit in that chair. We're gonna draw in that corner, and that's where you're gonna stay, and everything else is gonna take place. But you're not doing nothing.
You're getting coffee for the office while everybody else.
Yeah,
he's gonna be at the Justice League headquarters making lunch. You know, he's making sandwiches,
steaming everybody's uniforms.
Can you imagine? I mean, oh my gosh, like that would last more than 5 minutes. And then Kelly Quintella would somehow be teaming up with Kai Pham. Now, Kai Pham isn't even in our universe, so there'd have to be something done there, but whatever. I'm okay with that, I guess. I don't really care about Kelly one way or the other, so...
I wouldn't even read it, so it doesn't matter.
And I don't know if I missed it, and if any of the listeners out there watched that video, I didn't hear him say anything about Joe Mullane.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, we haven't brought her up yet. She's got to be a central figure that they're going to do something with.
I hope not. So I don't know what his plan was for her. I don't know whether I missed it because I kind of was half listening to it. I don't know whether he mentioned it or not, but if somebody out there who's listening to this episode watched the same video and know what he said, shoot us an email or something just so we can respond to it. But anyway, it's interesting. Other than Guy and Hal, the rest of them all cease to be Green Lanterns.
So even Hal wouldn't be a Green Lantern. He'd be doing desk duty. So they take his ring away.
No, he'd be a Green Lantern, but he'd be doing all the dirty work, all the non-glamorous stuff. You know.
Man, that's a rough life. I guess he could settle down and have kids. And
I don't know.
Carol would get what she wants. She wanted them to settle on Earth anyway, right?
He'd be on New OA doing, cleaning up the latrine or something. I don't know. But gosh, what an awful, other than Jessica, I like Jessica's plan. Because I do believe that I liked her as a Yellow Lantern just because I think it allows you to explore the whole fear thing, which I think they've gotten away from. That was the whole draw to her was some of the anxiety and stuff. And there for a while in the Sam Humphries run, it would be brought out in the oddest times. Like they'd fight somebody, do something great, and then a guy would show up with a cowboy hat and she'd freak out, it was just weird, how it was done. I understand what he was trying to accomplish, but after a while you see her written and the writers don't even really allude to it anymore. She's just another generic insert here Green Lantern character. Putting her in that position where she'd have to learn how to harness her fear, I think would help her as a character in dealing with the things that she's dealing with on a daily basis, but at the same time allow her to explore things as a character and make her a better character.
And she looks quite different in Super Pets. It's a totally different look on her.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But then again, so did Aquaman. So
right. They were variations on a theme.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, I did not read the Stan Lee, John Stewart. It wasn't John Stewart. It was what was the character's name? It was a Green Lantern. His name was Len Lewis. Yeah. Which he becomes the Earth 6 Green Lantern. We saw him during the Morrison run show up as part of the Multiversal Lanterns.
He kind of looks like what's his face from the Watchmen? That blue guy. Who's that blue guy from the Watchmen?
Dr. Manhattan.
He looks like a green Dr. Manhattan. I mean, that's basically with the Green Lantern emblem on the front.
So these stories were released recently as part of a post Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths and celebration of Stan Lee's birthday kind of thing, right? It came out a couple weeks ago. Is that correct? Because you picked it up. I didn't catch it.
Yeah, it's some kind of like collection of all his works. I guess it's like a after Dark Crisis, and then I think it's an anniversary of his death too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah. It's either his birthday or an anniversary of his passing, and it was a collection of all of the Just Imagine stories, if I understand it correctly. But I have not read any of it, so I thought I had a copy of it, and I don't. But anyway, you wanted to kind of just chat about the fact that it was reprinted recently, correct?
Yeah, just reprinted. It's a short little read. It's just a few pages long. It shows a really, really different looking Necron in there, and kind of a variation of the Black Lantern ring look. But I wonder when he wrote this. I wonder when he would have written this.
So if it's the original Just Imagine story, that came out in 2001.
So that would have been pre-Blackest Night.
Correct.
So it's interesting that it's got because this Necron looks like one of the pages looks like it has a Black Lantern emblem on it. So I wonder, because I'll show it to you. I don't know if you could see it over the camera. See it up there?
Oh yeah. I wonder if this is something new.
I don't know.
It looks like it, and I don't have the book. It looks like it's a new stories with those characters and not the original stories.
Okay. It's worth a read. It's a fun little it's a brief little battle scene that takes place. I'm not even sure some of the characters' name. Like it was just an offshoot, and I texted you about it because I didn't know if you had been interested in it or not. But it was an altogether different kind of feel as a Green Lantern because it didn't feel like a Green Lantern at all, just besides seeing that emblem in there.
So I've just popped up DC's website, and it is an all new stories based on the Just Imagine stories.
Okay.
It's a 96-page prestige format one-shot. Came out on the December 27th. It was to honor what would have been Stan Lee's 100th birthday.
Gotcha.
And it is a commemorative one-shot anthology featuring new stories based on his interpretations of DC core characters. All those Just Imagine one-shots from 2001, 2002. So it is a new story.
Okay, good. Well, then because that was what, when I first read that, when I saw Necron, I'm like, wait a minute, Necron was in Blackest Night. If this is an older Stan Lee story, where did Jeff Johns got his idea from Stan Lee? Anyway. So yeah, go check it out. Actually, a lot of the stories in here are really, really cool, and they have a lot of different artists and creators in here, and some of the art is fantastic on a lot of these characters. It's fun. It's a fun play.
I'll have to pick it out. I haven't been into my shop since before Christmas, so I'll have to see. They might have pulled a copy for me. I'll have to go back and look at it. And I didn't read the original Just Imagine stuff, but it'd be interesting to look at. I liked how the character was portrayed in the Morrison run as part of the multiversal Green Lanterns. So I would like to follow that up. That's very cool. All right. Well, we have some listener feedback. My power ring is blinking, so let's take a moment off of the air and rest our voice for a minute, and we'll come back and respond to our listener feedback.
This is Robert Vendetti, and you're listening to the podcast of OA.
Greetings, Green Lanterns, Myron and Phil. We have a communication from Ken regarding a mashup between Green Lantern and something called Star Wars. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
I'm glad Phil was able to enjoy my Game of Thrones comparisons. Cersei/Saranic is a little bit of a stretch, and Lisa Drack probably fits better, but after the Venditti run, I don't know, it could work. Her burning Kyle and announcing herself Saranic Sinestro feels like a Cersei move. I'm resending an email I think you might have missed and adding another question I hope you enjoy. Keep up the great work. A. Green Lantern plus Star Wars. Merge/compare the characters from the two franchises. There are tons of characters from both universes. I skipped the sequels and missed way more EU characters, not to mention the other emotional spectrum characters, so let me know who you can think of. Here is my list. Anakin/Darth Vader, Hal Jordan/Parallax. Luke Skywalker, Kyle Rayner. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Alan Scott. Yoda, Ganthet. Ki Jin, Abin Sur. Mace Windu, Tomar Ree/2. Ahsoka, Arisia. Padme Carol Ferris. Chewbacca, Kilowog. Han Solo, Simon Baz. Lando Calrissian, Jon Stewart. Leia Organa, Jessica Cruz. C-3PO, Salak. Darth Sidious/the Emperor, Krona. Count Dooku, Sinestro. Darth Maul, Atrocitus. Mara Jade, Saranic Nadu. Quinlan Vo, Guy Gardner. Droids, Manhunters. General Grievous, Larfleeze. Clone Troopers, Darkstars. Stormtroopers, Blackstars. Boba Fett, Fatality. B. If you had to redesign 5 Green Lanterns, who would you choose? My choices are: Number 5, Kyle Rayner. As much as I love the original Banks design, even with the modern symbol, Kyle has been defined by redesigns for over a decade, changing his suits to match his ever-developing story and character. Going to his original suit and staying with it for several years makes it feel like his story has hit a stall. Number 4, Jon Stewart. The classic cow suit perfectly reflects Jon's character, but after 20 years, I'm bored of it. I don't need anything as bizarre as his recent suits, but I think something new would really spice up Jon's story. Number 3, Guy Gardner. While he has been a Red Lantern and warrior, Guy has worn the same Green Lantern uniform for 40 years. Something like his Young Justice costume would be a nice change of pace. Number 2, Kelly Quintela. Teen Lantern. If Kelly is going to be in more GL comics and represent the core, she shouldn't be stuck wearing lame GL-themed gym clothes. Number 1, Jessica Cruz. Jess' GL suit looks good, but it's pretty much Hal's with extra lines, white boots and a pretty useless green eye logo. After Joe and Ty got unique designs, Jess should have a suit that reflects her own style and hunter/biologist background. Have a great one.
Hey, Ken, thanks for the listener feedback. And I have to apologize. This was sent back in October, and I missed it as I was following through on different things. I overlooked it. So I wanted to make sure we get to the conversation and some of the topics you had. And I like the merger of Star Wars and Green Lantern, because to me that and Star Trek have always been great comparisons for me. And I like a lot of your comparisons, although I had some different ones in mind. I pictured Anakin/Darth Vader's Sinestro for his fall and potential return, and making then Hal becoming Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan becoming Abin Sur, and Alan Scott being Qui-Gon Jinn. And then I pictured Mace Windu being Fantara Rob, and Ahsoka Tano being Kat Matui, and Aaron Sur being Padme for the relationship back to Sinestro. And then I like the idea of Kyle Rayner as Han Solo, with Leia Organa being Sorenik Natu, because Sorenik Natu being Darth Vader's daughter, and tying up with Kyle. And then for the Emperor, I would have made the Emperor Parallax instead. And then Mara Jade would have been Carol Ferris for her love interest with of Luke Skywalker in the expanded universe. So I would have had a few things differently. Other than I liked all the rest of the things. I love the idea of the dark stars and the black stars as the different versions of the stormtroopers and clone troopers. I thought that was really cool. As far as what 5 Green Lanterns would I redesign? I agree with you, Ken. I think Kyle needs another new look. I see Kyle Rayner as the kind of guy who would regularly change costumes just because, on a whim, his artistic side kicks over and designs something different. So I could see that one definitely. And I like the idea of maybe giving Guy a modernized version of his classic look. I'd also change Kelly like you, but I would change her into street clothes because she wouldn't have a power ring or any connection to the Green Lanterns anymore. And I would also change Jessica because I hate to say it, but I agree with Geoff Thorne. I think she should stay a Yellow Lantern. As to who 5th outfit I would change, gosh, I don't know. I really don't. I don't have any ideas. I could see changing John's, but his look has kind of come like Hal's. His look is pretty synonymous with how we see them in media, and those two characters I think are going to get used more often than not. So I see the need for there to be some continuity in their designs. But maybe Simon Baz. Simon Baz, because I hate the Gimp mask thing. That thing bothers the heck out of me. I think it's awful. I think from an artistic point of view, it makes it hard to express yourself visually because you're so covered. Your head is so covered. So yeah, Simon Baz would be my last one.
That's a tough one to beat, man.
It would be my number one choice for outfit to change.
So I'm not going to touch Ken's Star Wars analogy with a 10-foot pole. And the only reason I say that is because he started out by insulting me by putting Han Solo and Simon Baz in the same sentence together. Ken, you just can't do that, man. No, those are all prime choices, though. I like your picks, and I really liked. Not only did I like your picks, I liked Myron's comeback with it. And I liked how Myron interwove them all in there, just to make sure there was some character comparisons. That was good. All right, so let's change up some options on our lanterns, huh? My biggest one, I'd have to say, is Kyle's lumpy, stupid visor that he wears. I want it to go. Get out of here. Go. There needs to be a redesign on that. That's been stuck. And it's been stuck and it's been around in different variations too, right? When he wore the white lantern, he was wearing it. It's too, I don't know. I've never liked it. And that's the only thing I've never liked about it, because some artists have a bad way of taking it and making it look really, really clunky, like it overtakes his head.
Like, I think Daryl Banks is the only one who can consistently make it look right.
Yeah. Right. And there's others that make it look pretty, sleek or, anyway.
But more often than not, it does not look good.
No, I think it's something that could be done, and he could be gone away with entirely. As far as his uniform goes, I would go back to his original one when he first came out in the 90s. I liked his original design. I'd stay with that, make it more sleek maybe. I'm big on I'm big on characters keeping their own design. Like, take Superman, for instance. I've always been a big fan of the red trunks. And I'm going to say it. I don't care what people think. I like the trunks. I always have, and I think it always looked good. I know it's a ridiculous debate in fandom, and I know ridiculous and copious amounts of dumb narrative goes into arguing about it. But at the same time, I like the same, like Hal Jordan. I like his same design. I don't mind when they do a little tweaks to it here and there, or if it's something that's got to be tweaked and modified for a particular story arc, like his Renegade outfit. I loved it. I thought it was the coolest. I thought it was the coolest Hal Jordan look in a long time. So as far as that goes, Guy Gardner would be somebody's I'd change, but I'd go back. I would again would go back with one of his original designs. Just tweak it up, make it more updated, more modernized, I guess you can say, with as an outfit would go. And I think the same could be said for a lot of those characters. Jon Stewart, I'd do the same thing. I don't think that you need to change their costumes just because, I don't know, maybe a trend calls for it or something. I think you can tweak it and be just fine. And I think those things work just great, So, and there you have it. Jessica wouldn't do anything at all, because I'll go back to what you said. I like her as a Yellow Lantern. So, I think that's going to be cool, or it would be cool if she stayed in that particular universe for a while.
Agreed. All right. Well,
but Ken put some thought into this stuff.
Absolutely. So Ken, thanks again. Power Ring, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody how they can be a part of the show?
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
This is Salak, Green Lantern of Sector 1418, and you are receiving the podcast of OA. The podcast of OA.
All right, fellow Owens, welcome back. Well, here we are, Myron, 2023, new episode, and it's going to be a new year for the DCU, and maybe some Green Lantern stuff we're going to hear some news about in the coming months.
Yeah, I expect we are going to get the solicitations here shortly, so we should at least know something about the first book of the year, because that's supposed to come out in April. So I'm interested to find out what Mariko Tamaki has in mind for Hal Jordan.
I mean, that's the thing about, like, you and I always, you go back so many years with the different books that you read, and it's jarring when a different writer takes over, let alone a different artist, because you don't, sure, you might have read some of their material, but even though you might know that person's writing, how they write another character that you've liked is a different story, so it may not fit your jive. Geoff Thorne is a prime example. It just didn't fit my jive. Didn't like it.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. So I'm interested to see what her take is on it. I don't have a lot of experience with her writing. I did like her Jessica Cruz story from the Future State book that came out a while ago when they did those 2 Future State Green Lantern issues. I liked her Jessica Cruz story. So I'm interested to see what she brings to the table and what story she wants to tell, because I don't believe DC just said, tapped her on the shoulder and said, we want you to write Green Lantern. I'm assuming she did a pitch. So
she must have done something and they impressed them.
Well, Geoff Thorne impressed them too, so, one last dig on the way out, right?
Fair.
So it wraps up another episode. I'm looking forward to 2023 and as always, getting together with you, my friend, and talking about comics. Next episode we should be doing here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing our top 5 Green Lanterns from the multiverse. That was a listener suggestion. So
I love that. That's going to be a great idea. I'm looking forward to doing it.
I think, I had a difficult time with the female characters. I think this is going to be the most difficult one, because there's so many versions of different Green Lanterns from across the multiverse. Because it opens the door to all of the Elseworlds books that have come out too, and there's just so many different versions.
Well, I'm also going further here. I'm taking part of Barry Allen's trajectory that he went through all those multiverses.
Right. And you go back and look at that issue of I think it was the Flash or the Final Crisis. I don't remember which issue it is now off the top of my head.
It had to be Final Crisis.
Yeah, I think it was where he had his notes, his research notes in the back as he was going through the multiverse. So it lists some of the different Earths, some of which we're very familiar with, and some of them are ones that get validated to be existing in the new DC multiverse. So it opens the door to all of those, all the ones we've seen before. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
All right.
Good times.
All right, my friend. Well, this wraps up this episode. Thank you all for joining us as we've had more Green Lantern conversation, and I hope you stick around with us for the rest of the year. to see what we have to say, and as we talk about the new runs, and hopefully there's gonna be a lot of cool, good stuff to talk about.
There is, and Happy New Year wherever you are. I hope you guys rang in the new year great, and take care of each other. Have a good, safe year.
Absolutely. So, my friends, as always, until next time, keep that power ring charged, take care of each other, and make every day your brightest day. The Podcast of Oa is the official podcast of the blog of Oa and a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Share your comments and questions by calling the show's voicemail line at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can send your emails to podcast@blogofoa.com. You can also find the Blog of Oa and the Podcast of Oa on Twitter and Facebook. Green Lantern and other related characters are the copyrighted property of DC Comics Incorporated and are used without permission. The Blog of Oa and the Podcast of Oa are fan productions and do not claim any ownership over the Green Lantern or any other copyrighted properties.